Hello everyone, Alistair Gold here, back from Germany. Arrived not too long ago, actually had quite a late flight out, which I think was probably a good thing, bearing in mind some of the people earlier in the day were having their flights cancelled with all the storms and everything. But yeah, back from Germany and an adventure that brought a win in Europe. That's good. A win just in general is pretty good right now. A stadium in the middle of absolutely nowhere. Lovely Heidelberg. Anyone that stayed in Heidelberg will have been very impressed with that. It's a really nice kind of German small city, I would say. If you ever decide you're going to a Hoffenheim game, stay in Heidelberg. Do not stay in Sinsheim, where Hoffenheim's stadium actually is, because other than an amazing looking museum, to be fair, with like a Concorde and a Tupolev outside, which I didn't even realise was a thing. I thought it was another Concorde. I didn't realise the Russians had their own version of a supersonic passenger aircraft. You didn't think this was going to start with plane spotting, did you? But it is really cool, honestly. That's about it, though. The rest of the area is nothing. Or nothing anyway if you want to stay there in a tourist capacity. German trains as well. Honestly, anyone that did this trip, that was all we were talking about. All the many fantastic Spurs fans I met on this trip, we all had the same deep, intense loathing, and it was the timekeeping of German trains. In Italy, the trains are often late, but at least they hold the connecting train for you most of the time. In Germany, just chaos, absolute chaos. Anyone that knows trying to get back to Heidelberg after the game, absolute chaos. Train stopped working, train stuck on a platform for 2 hours, absolute mess. But look, it brought a win. It brought a very knackered Spurs kind of side just about getting it over the line with 5 teenagers on the pitch as well, which says everything about the situation at Spurs right now. You could probably do with a few of those transfer things. You know, apparently there's this window. It's called the January transfer window. There's a summer one too, and you can add new players. Here we are. I'm recording this late at night on the 24th. It will be the 25th by the time I finish recording this, because I wanted to get out early in the morning with it so I could have a Saturday off, pretty much. It's a very selfish reason. But yeah, we're going to be 25 days into the window by the time you watch this, and still no one holding up the jersey, signing a piece of paper that I don't think ever really probably is the actual contract. I don't know. I would assume it's not. I presume it's just a random piece of paper because I don't know. But I'm sure I was told that once. It could be completely wrong and I could be making it up. But it doesn't matter. That's not the important part of this at all. Stuff needs to be done. It's just madness now. Got loads of really good stuff from Postecoglou. Because I'm doing this a bit later, we've got the embargo quotes are able to go into the 10:30 stuff that went tonight, and there's some really good stuff he says in that about things. But yeah, it was a very interesting trip to Germany. And yeah, a lot of Spurs fans probably enjoyed it more overall than they were expecting to. There was plenty to discuss from the game and a castle in Heidelberg. I don't think I mentioned the castle. That was interesting. But anyway, back to the match. The more important stuff. We're going to talk about Tottenham. We're not going to talk about Concords and castles. Don't worry. Although we kind of have. So the game itself, the lasting image for me that summed up this match, and it will stick in my head absolutely. I even turned to the other journalists and went, look at that, look at that, look at that kind of thing. As the final whistle blew at the Pre-Zero Arena, as it is known in Sinsheim, Archie Gray and Lucas Bergvall just collapsed to the floor. Both at different parts of the pitch. They just fell to the floor and lay there on their back. Absolutely shattered. Gone. They had given everything. Bergvall at the end of the game, right in those final moments of added time, had sprinted to close down the keeper. This is an 18-year-old central midfielder. He'd run past everyone to try and close down the goalkeeper. And in the other half, Archie Gray is throwing himself into tackles, trying to stop any crosses coming into the box that might bring a late equaliser for Hoffenheim. And yeah, I think just as soon as they heard that whistle blow, it was almost like their body said, lads, it's over, it's done. You can stop now. And they just kind of both, it's almost like someone turned the off switch on their bodies and they just went, just like collapsed to the floor. because actually from the outside, it looked, when you looked across the pitch, it looked like they were the team that had lost. They were part of the Hoffenheim side or something. They were just sitting there, and it's like that classic, oh, we've lost a big game look when they're all on the floor and other people have to try and help them up. But they hadn't. They had won the game and they had given everything. And it just was such a powerful image to me because it showed, first off, two 18-year-olds having to do so much for Tottenham right now, but also the situation that has arisen to allow that to be a thing. And it is the thing that I've been going on about in recent videos. It's absolutely absurd. It's ridiculous. It's just kind of, I mean, it is. It's just so poor. Just the planning, the execution, whatever you want to call it, to get in this situation where we're more than 3 weeks, approaching 4 weeks into a month where we knew they had to have reinforcements. We've known for so long, and Postecoglou said they need help, they need help, they need help, they need help. And looking over the horizon, no help coming, other than those trying to get back fit. No help whatsoever from the transfer market. But yeah, I just felt this was a real powerful image. If anything, the club, the people at the top, Daniel Levy, the board, Jan Langer, whatever, just look across that pitch and watch those two 18-year-olds who've given everything collapse into the floor. And if you can look at that and feel like, have we done everything? Absolutely everything, and busted the gut to absolutely help them like they've busted a gut for Spurs. Who knows? I could be completely wrong. Maybe they've tried absolutely everything, but I just see other clubs that have brought in players and I kind of think, have you? But yeah, it was just relief and exhaustion between the two of them. Bergval's stats, he won 8 of his 10 ground duels during the match and 1 of his 2 in the air. He made 3 successful tackles of the 5 he went for. And I just love the fact that he's swiftly proving to not be a luxury player, even though he's only 18. He only turned 18... Oh, it was last year, wasn't it? Yeah, it'll be 19 in February, next month. Actually, it's not that long till it's February, is it? Because he signed when he turned 18. But either way, a teenager that is not a luxury player already. I think he's kind of being hardened by the circumstances. He's turning into a bit of a Scandinavian warrior for this team. He's getting more and more physical. He's adding strength to his play. He's adding fitness to his play. Like I said, 94th minute or so, sprinting to press the goalkeeper. That shows you what he's added to his game. And we saw him in those early matches where he was like, second half, a bit like Richarlison was yesterday, but we'll talk about that in a bit. I'm just kind of... It's weird. On one side, I'm really happy that Bergval and Gray are getting the minutes because it has developed them exponentially. They'll be developing. And as soon as they can get into a team where they're not having to be relied on to do everything or a lot of the stuff, they're going to be incredible because of the experience that they've got in their game and the way it's hardened them, like I said, as players in a kind of more physical game than they've been used to, but also just the bad experiences as well, I think. And Gray, one of the Hoffenheim players tried to pick him up and like that classic, come on now, get up, don't worry, even though they've been the winning team. And he was like, no, like I need longer. And it wasn't just tiredness. He was kind of holding the back of one leg. Postecoglou explained that a little bit more today in the press conference. They got back at like 2 a.m. and Postecoglou had to do a press conference at 10:30, I think it started, which I think, if I'm not mistaken, is his 13th press conference in 21 days. Just ridiculous. He must be sick of the media or sick of the sight of them. I wasn't back for it, so he couldn't be sick of me. I guess he had to go and do that one early this morning. Or yesterday morning for you guys watching this. Tomorrow, guys and girls. So explain the Archie Gray stuff. He said he got a knock towards the end of the game on his knee. He's just exhausted, mate. I'm sure he'll be back in the morning doing everything right like he does. The players are trying to work as hard as they can between games to recover and make sure they're ready to go. Nothing significant came from last night apart from fatigue, nothing else. That's great news as well, because he just needs Archie Gray right now. He's such a multi-purpose player. It's like his Swiss Army knife of a player for him, even though we know he's going to be so much more than that. He's playing left back yesterday. Oh, sorry, Thursday night. Which I was worried for him before the game. I was thinking, oh no, this is a hamstring kind of role for him because he's been used to playing a centre back. He's playing every minute, even 2 hours at Tamworth. And you kind of think, oh, the left back's got to get really up and down the pitch. This is so dangerous. But thankfully, it looks like nothing too bad came from it. But what was really nice as well was when Gray finally kind of rose to his feet, I saw a couple of the senior players go over, and one in particular, Rodrigo Bentancur, went up to him and kind of put his hands on either side of his face. And he seemed to be saying something like really heartfelt and passionate to him. I'm presuming it was high praise indeed for all the things he'd been doing during the game. And then Maddison came over and seemed to do something similar. Maddison actually explained later that he'd gone into the changing room and told both of them, Gray and Burval, that, don't underestimate what you're doing at 18 years old. It's incredible, week in, week out, and how proud he was of them. And he did a good little interview with TNT Sports after the game. He said, we've got two 18-year-olds in Archie Gray and Lucas Burval just churning out 90 minutes after 90 minutes because of the injury situation we're in, which I don't want to keep blabbing on about, but it is real at the minute. It is happening. We do have about 11 fit senior players. And they're being asked to do so much. In the end there, Lucas chasing down the keeper in the 93rd minute when he's dead on his feet. Archie winning duels in the bottom corner, stopping crosses coming in. We're asking so much of them. I said to them both in there, I'm just really proud of them. We're asking so much, and I think if the gaffer had it perfectly, he would have probably embedded them in a bit slower because of their age. But this is all brilliant experience for them, and I'm really proud of them. It was. It was a team that was dead on its feet. I think, and I could be wrong, I think there was more of an understanding in the stadium at the performance than maybe I saw on social media as I kind of looked at it yesterday and maybe today. And I think because in the stadium, and again, this is sometimes you just see players off the ball and what they're doing and how they're kind of reacting. They were dead on their feet. There were so many players that as soon as the ball was somewhere else, they were like, kind of hunched over because this was always probably going to be the case with the game, and unfortunately it's probably going to be the case with Leicester on Sunday as well. But Spurs kind of had to put everything into the first half, try to get in a kind of a good way. They were pressing, they were trying to do everything they can do, knowing that the second half they were going to flag badly because it's the same players playing every 3 days and they are shattered. Again, absurd situation, should never have been allowed to happen. And like I said before, finishing a game with 5 teenagers on the pitch in a Europa League crunch game against a team that has the crowd getting behind them and pushing them on and all this sort of stuff. But yet they're up against a Spurs side that's got 2 17-year-olds, one of those making their debut, 2 18-year-olds we've just spoken about, and a 19-year-old in Will Lancashire, who's, of course, less experienced than 3 of those other teenagers. And then behind them, you've got Brandon Austin, who was making only his second start for the club, his European debut, yet they made it through. It's one of those where, I know there'll be gripes about the second half performance, but they were shattered, but they got through. This has been the thing. In recent games, you'd have been worried that they would have conceded late on. And yes, Hoffenheim weren't the greatest. Of course they weren't. They're going through their own tough spell right now. But Spurs held on. They did. And that's all you can ask is a win. They needed a win so badly. It was such an uneven performance. I mean, that first half, they scored twice, Spurs. They could have scored about 5 in that first half. They had, off the top of my head, there were a few saves. I think Richarlison was saved. Bergvall had a close-range header from a set-piece saved. Porro went through and hit the ball wide when he should have got it on target. I feel like there was another 1 or 2 big opportunities as well. I think there was one where Decky was going through and he couldn't get the ball across and they should have scored from that. They should have put it like beyond sight at half-time. I know that that's a familiar thing as well. But yeah, even in that second half, as they were getting tired, Postecoglou kind of knew he still had to take players off. And that was the dumb situation about it all. He still had to kind of had one eye on Sunday. And he had to take Son off and Maddison off just to have some semblance of energy for when Sunday comes along. Because, let's be honest, Leicester, yes, they're in a bad run, but they're going to come into this with 8 days of recovery after their defeat to Fulham at home. So that's where they're going to try and aim to be better in the second half. And that's what's really annoying about that, is that Spurs have been one of the fittest teams in the league and have been strong late in games, whereas now they're kind of losing that, just overplayed, same 11 players. I can't think there's going to be many changes on Sunday again, but we'll talk about that towards the end, the potential team for that. Because so many injuries still, new ones too. The new phrase at Tottenham right now is they're a bit sore. I don't know if that's because they don't want to say it's a muscle injury or what, because they're overplaying, because they're just sick of saying that. But yeah, it was. It's just mad. Yeah. So Leicester have had 8 days off. Spurs rocked up at 2 a.m. this morning on the Friday. Sorry, yesterday for you guys and girls. Friday at 2 a.m. would have had a day essentially of just recovery work. Saturday will be such a light session, it's unreal. And then they'll go into a game again on Sunday. It's just mad. It's just mad. By the way, if you haven't seen it yet, I forgot, I haven't even put this in my notes to talk about, that I had a really interesting sit-down interview with Pedro Porro this week on Tuesday, the day before we all went off to Germany. And it's really nice. It's really nothing to do with me, all to do with him. He decided he wanted to do it in English as well. And my first thoughts when he said that was like, oh, great, yay. Knowing that, broken English is not going to make for the greatest quotes, but fair play to him. He really got some good phrases, sentences, got into depth. I'm always in awe of people that can speak a second language. And the translator, who was meant to be there to kind of really help out, only really had to help him with a couple of words. He just wanted to double check. But it's a really interesting interview. It's stuff you can take from it is the squad are fully behind Ange. That was one thing. The kind of scotched all the talk about the training sessions being intense and just essentially going into detail about the fact that they're just doing recovery. It's all they're doing right now. There's no time for intense sessions. Everyone's on like individual regimes where they're trying to just somehow have energy for the next one. And most sessions before a game are just like light walkthroughs. And and it's good. And there's some lovely stuff about his granddad and how important his granddad Antonio was or is to his life. And he was like showing me his phones. Like, he rang me after the Everton game and stuff like that to kind of tell me off about stuff and dissect that defeat. But yeah, it's a really interesting interview. You can find it on my Twitter feed. You have to scroll down a little bit, or just Google Alistair Gold Pedro Porro, and I'm sure it will come up. Or probably Google Pedro Porro Alistair Gold. I don't know where you put me first. But yeah. So anyway, the reason I brought that up was just essentially talking about the training sessions as well. And yeah, they just had to dig in the second half. I looked at the stats and it showed you that 44% possession Spurs had, 100 less passes than Hoffenheim's 542, which you would expect in that game would have been the other way, but it shows you the tiredness. Hoffenheim were just trying shots from everywhere. They had 22 shots on the night, only 5 on target. They were just attempting them from long range, things like that. Spurs also had 5 on target. I think they had 8 or 9 shots in total, Spurs. And the difference was, of course, that they scored 3 of them and Hoffenheim only managed 2. It wasn't pretty, but they got there in the end. And it was a win they desperately needed. They've kind of got this little run right now of the last 3 cup games this month. They've won all the games. Yeah, in the Premier League, not good at all. So yeah, I asked kind of Postecoglou about kind of having a bit of pride about the players, but also the fact that he had to finish the game with 5 teenagers. And he said, just outstanding by the players. Full credit to them. Winning away in Europe is always difficult, irrespective of the situation you're in. But with the situation we're in, just a really unbelievable effort. Great leadership by the experienced players. We really needed them to stand up today. And I thought Madders, Sonny, Rodrigo and Benny were outstanding. In the first half, I thought we played really well. We created some really good opportunities for ourselves and maybe could have had 1 or 2 more. Second half, we looked a little bit fatigued and had to hold on for a little bit and defend a lot more, which we did okay on the most part. When they scored, the game tightened up, but it was a great finish by Sonny to give us that extra buffer. Yeah, we finished with 5 teenagers, Brandon's first game in Europe and second game overall. And I think you take European victories for granted. But actually it was a really unbelievable effort and a really strong-willed group of players today, and credit to them. And yeah, it's true actually. We do kind of just It's like, oh, you should be going there and smashing a team like that. And as Postecoglou pointed out to us and I think his players before the game to kind of make sure that they were aware they're not going to stroll this game. Only one team the previous night in all of the other fixtures, the Champions League fixtures, had won away from home. And they are quite difficult games away from home, regardless of the opposition. I mean, Spurs have found it this season, but so many other clubs as well. You just want to get in, get out, get your result, and kind of a professional performance, really. And to be fair, exactly like I said, I've given them a bit of flack recently because I don't feel they've stepped up, but the senior players did absolutely step up in Germany this week, and all of them really. I think it was 4 main senior players. I just thought all of them, you could say, put in really good performances. And again, I think the fact that they're doing that for Postecoglou and for the team, again, it's another sign that there's no way has he lost the dressing room at all. They're still playing for him. Like I said, the second half against Everton, the attempt to fight back, you could see that in Germany as well. They're fighting for him, of course they are. And that's a major thing he's got in his corner right now with the results being so bad in the Premier League. Maddison just started straight off in top gear. I think he maybe suffered for that a little bit in the second half, but it was massively important to Spurs from the off because, of course, he scored within 3 minutes or so. His touch and the timing of his run on Pedro Porro's terrific ball were brilliant in that opening kind of run. Top draw, and then the finish as well was a really nice finish. But he explained kind of his thinking with that goal. He said, "It's a run I like to make. You got to know your players. You got to know your players as well. I know Pedro is a very good long passer of the ball and often looks for that. So I know that if I could get my timing right, they had a fairly high line early in the game and trying to be aggressive. So I thought if I could time my run well enough and then hopefully have the quality to finish it off, and tonight I did. You don't always have it, but tonight the touch was right, the finish was half decent, so I managed to get that opening goal." He then turned provider for Sonny. They both broke up the pitch. He played this ball that almost was intercepted, but the defender kind of hooked it on into the path of Sonny. Sonny went on. His shot took a deflection off the bottom of a player's boot, kind of bounced into the ground, I think, if I remember correctly, and up and over the keeper into the net. And, at that point, we kind of thought this could be a cricket score. They've really kind of got them on the rack now and had more chances. But it's like we were saying, it's the joke right now, isn't it? It's like, how many do Spurs need to win the game? It's ridiculous. Ultimately, the answer was 3. And I mean, Sonny's second goal was lovely. It was a really nice goal. And it came just when they needed it because, Hoffenheim had got a goal back and it just kind of slapped them back down a little bit. And it was the kind of clinical effort from Sonny that we're used to seeing him do over the years. Mikey Moore, made it back-to-back assists. Got his first Premier League assist. Now he's got his first Europa League assist, I think. Unless I'm missing one. But anyway, played it into Sonny's path. Son does a kind of a classic step-over move and then just smashes it left foot inside the right-hand corner, just inside the post. And lovely finish. That's the former Premier League Golden Boot winner. That's the kind of finish of a man that knows exactly where to put it in the net, and then hopefully that's a little thing for him to get that confidence flowing again. But like I said, it wasn't just Maddison and Son. I thought Bentancur and Davies were superb on the night. They were really good. Ben Davies starting back-to-back matches after 6-7 weeks out, and playing the full amount of time as well. The two of them succeeded in more defensive actions, kind of both of them, than anyone else on the pitch. Davies made 17 clearances, 6 headed ones, 4 ball recoveries, 4 interceptions, 2 blocks. His 17 clearances were more than any player has managed in a single Europa League match this season. And to boot, he won all 3 of his aerial duels on the night as well. Bentancur, he managed a whopping 13 ball recoveries, 7 clearances, 3 headed ones, and 4 interceptions. Won 3 of his 4 ground duels and got 95 minutes into his legs, which I think is really important for him. Obviously, he was back from the concussion protocol and much needed. Yeah, he gave the ball away a couple of times, but on the whole, he just was a really good shield and picked up a lot of the loose balls, second balls. He was just really, really good at that. And he knew, I just got the sense that he knew, okay, lads, I haven't been there for you. I haven't been playing every single minute, so I'm going to run my backside off until the end of this game as the fresher pair of legs on this pitch. And even though he probably was tiring, because he has had massive games over, the last couple of months or so. And yeah, I mean, also a bit of praise for Gray and Dragoshin. I was going to say Grey's Anatomy there. Gray and Dragoshin. They got another 23 defensive actions between them. And none of those four players I've just mentioned were dribbled past at any point on the night as well. Another little thing. Oh, another little bit of maturity, I suppose, as well. Bentancur, Dragoshin and Kulusevski were all on 2 yellow cards last night. Had they got another one, they would have missed the Elfsborg game next week. I think the cards wiped out after that Elfsborg game. I don't know whether if they get one in the Elfsborg game, whether they missed the first leg of any knockout game. I would imagine they probably do. But I don't know that for sure. But it would seem odd not to have that as the rule, really, because otherwise, why would you wipe it out afterwards? You'd wipe it out before. But yeah, they all managed to not get a third yellow card that would have ruled them out. So that was quite important, really, because if they're suspended for next week, essentially you and I are grabbing our boots and playing. There's so few players. And yeah, Maddison was asked about him and Sonny stepping up by TNT Sports after the game, and he said, we have to keep going. Me and Sonny are two leaders more in the way we play. We're not necessarily the biggest shouters. We're different kinds of leaders. I've always been one who has tried to have my presence on the pitch with my quality and dictating the game, and we did that tonight. We scored 3 brilliant goals. Like I said about the young lads, you need your experienced players as well. Me and Sonny are obviously delighted to be able to chip in with the goals and assists and help us win tonight in this tough moment because we needed that. And then when he was talking a bit more about the senior players, he said, I mean, Ben Davies. You talk about leaders. Ben Davies and Rodrigo tonight. Rodrigo got every single second ball. It'll go unnoticed. It won't make the newspaper headlines. It's mentioned here. Me and Sonny will probably get the headlines just because we scored, and that's how it works in football. But Rodrigo and Ben winning the duels, winning the headers at the end and leading us, even when me and Sonny had gone off, it's just outstanding. And it was a great team effort. Sonny put in a real captain shift. This was his 436th appearance for Spurs, which puts him in the top 10 of appearances of all time for Tottenham. He should motor quite quickly up that. I think the next 2 or 3 places, there's only maybe 4 or 5 appearances in it. I think Hugo Lloris is then above. He should overtake him by the end of the season with the amount of games we're hoping Spurs have. And then that kind of puts him around. I think I worked out potentially could end up the season in 6th, which is a phenomenal achievement, really. It just shows what a loyal servant he's been to the club as well. And yeah, he worked hard. There was one moment in the first half when Porro was up the pitch, as the fullbacks occasionally are, and Sonny did this great diagonal run all the way back, tracking back from his left wing all the way across to the right back slot, and played a big part in that Hoffenheim break kind of spluttering and coming to a close. So yeah, he was given everything, and that's all you can ask, really, isn't it? It's like the basic, really. You especially from your leaders, your Sonnys and your Madders, and eventually Romero when he comes back, and Vicario. I think they maybe miss Vicario's voice. As Madders was saying there, him and Sonny are probably more lead by example players than lead by words. And I think Vicario is probably the loudest voice on the pitch for Spurs. So yeah. He did, Sonny, celebrate his second goal with the old, shushing. I don't know what he was doing there. Whether he was doing it at the home crowd that were getting a little bit boisterous and trying to get their team back in the game, or whether he was doing it at the travelling fans. Maybe some of those were the ones that were giving him a load of abuse at the end of the Everton game. I don't know. Postecoglou was asked about it yesterday for you watching that in the later embargo section. He just essentially said, look, with everything I've got to deal with, you think I'm even thinking for a second about goal celebrations? I'm really not. And yeah, I don't know, to be honest. I really don't know. I mean, if you're getting abused, you probably do want to do something like that. But ultimately, he can kind of do what he wants as long as he's scoring goals and leading the team and everything like that. But yeah, feel free to let me know what you think in the comments underneath. Postecoglou was really happy with Sonny. He said, I thought he really stood up today. We needed him to. Him, Madders, Rodri, Benny, and a lot of the other players. It sounds like a band, doesn't it? Sonny, Madders, Rodri, and Benny. I think it's the Benny element that does it, isn't it? Sounds like Benny's on the drums. It's not just Lucas, Archie, Radu, and our young players. We also have to factor into it that Richie is just coming back from injury. There's a whole range of things we're dealing with out there. It can be easy, particularly away in Europe, to get swept away. But I thought Sonny led from the front tonight with his football, but also with his general actions and most importantly, the goals. Look, we're all copping stick at the moment. That's the nature of the beast. What we do as footballers and managers, we're all in the firing line at the moment. Whether it is warranted or not, you have to stand up and reply to it in the proper way, and I thought he did that tonight. And he was also asked, did Maddison do the same? And he said, you need to respond in the right manner, and I thought Madders was outstanding tonight. These players are exhausted, mate. They're professional footballers who are just 24/7 trying to recover right now. All of them. They're giving everything. I know somebody said to me yesterday that I could not believe that maybe they are prioritising one game over another. These guys are giving everything they can. It should not be dismissed that I had 5 teenagers out there on the pitch. We're a Premier League outfit playing in an away game in Europe, and we had 5 teenagers out there. It's pretty much unheard of in an important game. Not a dead rubber, and that goes to show the load these guys are willing to take on themselves without making excuses. I could not speak highly enough of the players carrying us through. They'll get some help, hopefully soon, with some players coming back, and we're in a really good position in Europe. Get to the knockout rounds, home and away, get our players back, and we'll back ourselves against anyone. The fact that these guys have got us to this position matters, and all the players that have carried us through, credit to them. And I do kind of feel that. I was saying this to a couple of journalists today as we were kind of heading home. I kind of feel like the Europa League is the one for me. I know they're close in the Carabao. You know, they're 180 minutes potentially, maybe extra time as well from glory, I suppose, in the Carabao Cup. I just got a feeling like Europa League with the home and away legs, and like you said, the players coming back. I don't know. It just kind of feels like maybe, but we're still a long way. It's very much a maybe rather than anything more than that right now. After the game, there was this photo the players took, and it went on a few of their social channels, of Deki Kulusevski on a treatment table, presumably just getting any kind of recovery that they have to do to him, and whatever they do, pummel the muscles and things like that. But he had the whole team, or a lot of the team anyway. There's often people doing interviews, tests, things like that they have to do. Not like written tests and stuff. Sometimes they have to go off for like random like drug tests and things like that. UEFA do and all these sort of things. But yeah, they're like all gathered around him. I think there was some of the sports science staff as well. And it's one of those photos that look, some rival fans will mock, which is always ironic because their clubs do it as well. I celebrate like it's a cup final, but it wasn't that. It was just this bunch of really overworked, drained players who have played so many minutes recently, just enjoying a moment where they finally got reward for the efforts they're putting in. And I've got no issue with that whatsoever. I really don't. It's just a nice moment for them. And Postecoglou was saying some stuff today in the later stuff that went out about, this whole experience is probably bonding them. It's bringing them closer. They're all having a battle together, however tired they are. And it's probably going to help the unity within the group as well. So you could take the positives from an absurd situation. And Maddison said afterwards, he said, this win will do so much. We've had a tough run of results. It's tough when you lose a couple in a row and then maybe you draw and then you lose. Momentum is such a big thing in football, especially in the Premier League and Europe as well. Tonight was always going to be a tough game. The manager always says to us how hard it is to win away in Europe. He always says, look at the result. And last night in the Champions League, all the fixtures, only one team won away. Winning away at any point in Europe is massive. Also to score 3 goals, although we never really have a problem scoring goals, we're normally quite good at that. I was just really proud of the guys tonight and how we dug in. But yeah, it was a night for the relatively new boys as well as those seniors. Brandon Austin, I thought, did pretty well again. Confirmed his spot, really, I think, now as in that trio of goalkeepers that have got the long-term contracts, and you can kind of look forward. I think at a time when we're talking about kind of the young, exciting players to look forward to the future, I think Vicario, Kinski, and Austin's a really good three of goalkeepers now. We can start kind of almost forgetting that being an area of worry in any way, because you've got Vicario, who's been putting all training images of himself and stuff, and diving around for the ball and stuff like that, and saying like back soon and all this sort of stuff. He's going to have a battle in his hands with Kinski, and that's a great thing, because he has a couple of off games, whereas before it was like, oh, you'll have to play through this. Now it will be like, oh, Kinski deserves a shot. And I'm not saying we're on the same level yet or anything, but this is the thing at Liverpool, isn't it, with Alisson and Kelleher, and you're kind of thinking like, oh, it could go either way. That's hopefully what Spurs are going to have. And then you've got Brandon Austin now, who's been tried and tested now in 2 games, and he's done well. I would say, he did well against Newcastle. This was another similar performance, really. And I do feel sorry for him that he's conceded 4 goals across his 2 games, because actually very little of that has been on him. Probably the only one you could maybe say second goal, he gets caught a little bit in no man's land, but it's a terrific cross, to be fair. There's more stuff about the defending and Porro probably being targeted for not being the tallest of defenders. You think maybe Spence in that position probably heads it away as a right back, or at least gives more of a challenge and makes it more difficult. But yeah, I think Austin maybe just got caught a little bit in no man's land of whether to come for the ball or stay on his line. And perhaps, I don't know, maybe a more experienced keeper makes the right decision there, or maybe not. But overall, I actually thought he did well. He kind of dealt with set pieces pretty well. Made a really good low save from Tom Bischoff. I don't know if it's Biscoff or Bischoff. If it's Biscoff, a lot of people in my family like the Biscoff. Yeah, he had that weird moment as well, the penalty incident, which... Yeah, it was early second half, wasn't it, where they gave a penalty and we're all trying to work out what it is. It was like a coming together in the air of him and Max Morstead. And it was like, you see that all the time. It was a really weird one. And then just as their player, I can't remember who it was, is about to step up and take the penalty, suddenly the referee gets told to go and look at his monitor by the VAR officials. And lo and behold, we see the replay properly, and you can see that Austin kind of scoops the ball up in the air during the challenge. So he actually gets the ball as well. And I've never seen a VAR decision about a penalty that late as the player's about to go and kick it. And then it kind of brought this quite funny moment where the referee goes to Austin to ask for the ball, to do a drop ball. And as he puts his hand out, Austin takes it to shake it, because I think he thinks he's apologising for wrongly giving a penalty and wrongly giving me a yellow card, which I'm pretty sure was rescinded. And yeah, it was just quite a funny moment. Made me chuckle anyway. And he was asked about Austin after the game. Postecoglou, he said, even when we signed Tony, in terms of European football, we knew we still need Fraser Forster and Brandon. Brandon did really well in the game he played against Newcastle, and he's trained really strongly since. We knew this game would be a bit of a target for him, and Fraser had an illness that knocked him back a bit and set him back a bit. But I just felt on the back of his performance in the league game that Brandon deserved a crack at it, and I thought he did well tonight. You can't underestimate European football away from home, especially the first game with a pretty relatively inexperienced team in front of him. And I thought he'd handled it really well, and we'll need him again next week. So yeah, 2 things on that. He's spot on. We kind of always don't take into account that these goalkeepers are coming in, him and Kinski, and playing in front of a really unsettled makeshift back 4. But also there, he said he'll play against Elfsborg, which is massive for him as well. It really does solidify him as the final member of the 3, and Forster and Alfie Whiteman, probably heading towards the end of their contracts this summer. Yeah, it was great for him. There was also a really nice moment for the academy and for Callum Olasese, which was terrific. He got on the pitch, 17 years old midfielder. He got on the pitch right near the end of the game. And it was just lovely for a number of reasons. As someone that always kind of tries to do as much academy stuff as possible and keeps an eye on the kind of players coming through and what the coaches are up to and everything. I know what a huge thing it is for everyone involved in the academy, not just the coaching staff, but also the support staff. Everyone, even the people like that drive them to games and look after them and do all these sort of things. It's just a massive moment when any young player from a club makes their first team debut. So, yeah, it was lovely. But there was also this added element to it as well of Olasese and Mikey Moore have just been like really good friends since I think they were 5 or something. There's these lovely photos doing the rounds of the two of them as such tiny kids with Spurs shirts and just playing football together. And they had this dream that the pair of them would eventually play for Spurs together. And it happened last night. It's lovely stuff. Mikey Moore tweeted after the game to him, "Congrats, brother. Something we've dreamed of and spoke about for years, playing together for this club. I'm proud of you, mate." And Olasese had earlier in the week, I watched a fair chunk of it on Spurs Play. He'd played 80 minutes of the FA Youth Cup tie at Grimsby, which ended up being a bit of a really tough game for them. They were 3-1 up. It looked like it was heading towards a really kind of simple conclusion. Then Grimsby fought back and with almost the last kick, I think it was, of normal time, forced it to extra time. And Spurs just had that little bit of extra quality in extra time to kind of finish it off. But yeah, so Olasese played 80 minutes of that game. And here he is 3 days later for the first team in a European game in Germany, having a nice little tidy cameo, to be fair, late on in the game. And didn't do much wrong. I think there was actually a situation where if someone had played him the ball, he might have actually been able to run through and have an effort at goal. But yeah, he did really kind of gave a good account of himself. Just nice, neat and tidy, really, and fighting away. He did an interview afterwards, which is, yeah, it was good for him. It's another part of the experience as well. It was kind of a classic 17-year-old's interview. It's kind of gave what was needed. He kind of knew the kind of things that he's meant to say. And he said, "It felt amazing. I've been working for this all these years and the opportunity came today and I'm just grateful for it. We had a big win with the under-18s and it was a really tough game being 3-1 up and they fought back but the boys pushed through. Then I've ended up here and the opportunity's come to make my debut, go on the pitch and just try my best. It's surreal going from the under-18s to the first team within a couple of days." I've stitched together a few answers there because I felt it kind of flowed nicer. He said, "It's tough when you first come up to the first team, but you've just got to work hard and get used to it and the tempo. All the boys are really good. They support you, show faith, and they really push you in training." And he was asked about stepping onto the pitch with Mikey Moore. This was all in his club interview. And he said, "We've been together since we were like 5 years old, even before we were at Spurs. It's a dream come true for both of us, and hopefully there's many more to come. It was just really intense out there because it was only 3-2. We had to dig deep and just get the win. Now I need to keep working hard in training, take any opportunity that comes and grab it with both hands." So yeah, absolutely delighted for him. It was really cool. And yeah, things you love to see, really. Postecoglou was asked about him. He spoke about him after the game. I actually preferred his answer today in his press conference. Sorry, yesterday in his Friday press conference. We are over midnight, so it is definitely yesterday now anyway, even for me. He said, "We've got quite a few young boys. We've had quite a few young boys training with the group, and obviously with the situation we're in, it's allowed them to understand what it takes to even train at this level. And Callum's been great. He's obviously a very talented young player and he's one of the ones we've got high hopes for. He got a taste of it last night, which is great for him and for his family. Hopefully it gives him encouragement, but he's still a long way to go in terms of becoming part of the first team. I guess in all these scenarios, you hope the experiences they gain fuels it even further, although he's a very motivated young player and we've got high hopes for him," which was lovely. That was what I kind of thought. Yesterday's answer, he just spoke more about it was good for him and he's a good kid and all this sort of stuff. Whereas today's answer, he kind of really just did actually say that someone they've got really high hopes for. So I thought that was nice. But yeah, we look ahead now to Sunday. Spurs are going to have to go again pretty much with the same bunch of players. I think having a focal point at Richarlison was a big help in that first half while he still had any semblance of energy left in his body. And I think that was a big part of why they really got at Hoffenheim and the ball stayed up that end of the pitch quite a lot. He was so tired in the second half. And I mean, quickly in the second half. With it, he was taken off 55th minute. And when he came off, he was gasping for air. He was so tired. It was only his second start of the season. I think Alkmaar was the other start he had at home. And yeah, long way to go for him in terms of trying to get his fitness back. But this was important. 50 minutes the other day, 55 today. Hopefully he can start again on Sunday. He just got to steer clear of injuries. But he does. He holds the ball up well. His pressing was good. But yeah, he needs to become sharper, of course, and he needs to get his his fitness back. I was about to say confidence. He doesn't need his confidence back because there was a funny little post someone put about we're 15th, man, and he'd put underneath it, don't worry, something like "Don't worry, bro, I'm back," or something like that, or "We won't be, I'm back." I can't remember what it was, but it was a funny little thing. It's on his Instagram somewhere if you find it, or it's in the replies anyway. It was in the replies. He did a post of him. It's like him just exercising, working out, or something. But yeah, his hold up. It's all what they need now. Now we know that Solanke's going to be out for 6 weeks. I wonder whether he'll be back for the City game. Maybe, I don't know. But Postecoglou said about him today, Richie is as fit as he could possibly be. As in, doesn't mean he's at his peak. He's saying he's as fit as he possibly could be with what's happened to him recently. And he said, we're obviously managing his minutes at the moment. We got through it. He got through it last night. He hasn't played for a long time, so he's not going to be at his sharpest. We're still going to manage that. The reality is, unless something changes, he has to play. And then he was asked whether this is a chance for Richarlison to take advantage with Solanke being out. And he said, I don't think Richie cares about Dom Solanke or anybody else. When Richie is playing, he's Brazil's number 9. When he played for us last year, he was scoring goals. I don't think Richie was ever worried. I think he will welcome Dom coming back. Both of them playing together could be a force for us. I don't think that factors into it. Richie is just happy he's physically in good shape and able to start contributing. And a lot of the injured guys, their biggest probably frustration is that they can't help the team. I know that is his main driver right now. And yeah, he's kind of part of the cavalry in terms of the club's players they already have in coming back. Romero and Van der Ven are just around a week now, and they'll be able to start returning to action. I saw Destiny Udogie posted on his social media that he's 70% at the moment, so that might mean he's on his way. He was asked today, Postecoglou, about Van der Ven and Romero potentially being back for the Liverpool-Villa games, the Cups. And he said, of the long terms, they're the only two. Mickey and Romero have a chance of that week. But we've still got 12 days or something. Part of that process is to see how they cope with training over the next week or so. Both of them are scheduled around that sort of time to be available. You'd probably want one or both to maybe get minutes against Brentford, wouldn't you, ahead of those games? There was also the French media have been claiming that Wilson Odobert could be back in training or on the training pitches at least early next month. But maybe probably not back in actual action until March, which probably sounds about right with everything that Ange's been saying. What else we got? Jed Spence is a doubt for the weekend. Of course he is. Just I was thinking, yes, you're going to have the fresh legs of Spence. He's had a little bit of a rest. And apparently, again, that phrase, he's feeling a bit sore. Pat Matasar, Yves Bissouma, both doubts as well when you could have freshened up the midfield. Kinski will return. Reguilon maybe gets a rare start, possibly, just to get some fresh legs into that back line. Maddison was talking about essentially the ridiculousness of the squad right now. He said it's relentless, the fixtures. And the beauty of having a big squad is being able to rotate, and we haven't got that luxury at the moment. So it'll be the same faces out there again, the same young lads making up the bench, but it's the situation we're in. I'm almost bored of blabbing on about it myself, but it is a situation. We realise that, so we'll try to recover, do everything we can for our bodies, and try to be at a good level for Sunday. This is kind of thing. It's like I kind of keep having to remind people that yes, they had 14 unavailable players for the match. Probably will be similar, I'd imagine, for Sunday. It's obscene. It's ridiculous. Postecoglou again, kind of in his press conference yesterday, reiterated the need for transfers. It's just, as he's continually doing. when he was asked whether he needs just anyone to come in just to plug some gaps and allow some rotation, or whether they need someone that makes a bigger impact, he said, it just depends. It depends on the player. It depends on how they fit into what we do. It's not just about bringing in another body. But yeah, there is still no doubt we need to help these players because we've still got some significant games in the next 2 or 3 weeks before we can get players back. There is the element, of course, we spoke about this before, that he'd said about the European kind of, what's going to have the end game for a lot of these teams and whether they're going to be still in European competition and everything is later because of this extra longer format. But it also has the flip side that next week's games, there suddenly maybe is going to be a flurry of activity where various clubs know that they need to sign more players or that they can get rid of players or they have to sell players because there's nothing really to aim for in the rest of the season, perhaps. And that was put to Postecoglou, and he said, yeah, potentially. I mean, I really think that has been a factor because if you look at the way Europeans' competitions are stacked up, that would be done and dusted by now, and people would know if they're in the Champions League or if they're in the Europa League and adjusted their sites. Maybe after last night, and I've had a close look at the 3-page table. Thankfully, we're on the first page, so I don't need to go beyond that. But if there are any significant clubs in there and out of the competition, it may make things happen a little bit quicker. They need help. Help them. He was asked about Manor Solomon and Brian Hill, whether they would come back, and he said just simply nope. As I think I said before, I think that there isn't a recall clause that's active anyway on Solomon. I'm not 100% sure on that, but I'm pretty sure there isn't one. But anyway, they're not looking to bring him back. And yes, he is doing very well for Leeds. But there was more questions about it. It's in the embargoed section that went out last night. He was asked, possibly, if there's money to spend this month. And he said, I don't ask those questions. It's not something I'm involved with. It's not something I have exposure to. My discussions with Johan, Langer and the club have been about trying to get some help for the players, and I'll let them do their jobs. And then he was asked, and this is where I felt the most interesting kind of answers came, he was asked, can you give us more depth on why the club hasn't made signings? And he said, there's not a lot more depth I can give. I've still got to manage this team and get them ready. We got back at 2 a.m. last night. I'm not out there trying to find opportunities for the club. That's not my role at this time. There isn't time to do it. I have daily communication with Johan in particular, and he's trying everything he possibly can to get the help we need. I don't think I'm stating anything other than the obvious, and for me to come here and say something else would be disingenuous. This playing group needs help. There's no doubt about it. We're sort of playing with fire by not bringing anyone in, but the flip side of that is the club is trying to change that situation. So I put those quotes out earlier, and some people were like, oh, he's a yes man, all this sort of stuff. I actually think that's the strongest he's gone. I think people are maybe taking that end bit where he said the flip side of that is the club is trying to change that situation. I mean, listen to these words. This playing group needs help. There's no doubt about that. We're sort of playing with fire by not bringing anyone in. I think that's the strongest thing to say. We're going to make a huge mistake if we don't bring people in. And by we, he's talking about the people that are meant to bring the players in. So, yeah, I thought it was pretty strong, to be honest. Look, he's not going to call them out right now because ultimately he needs them to kind of be doing their job rather than just being annoyed at him or putting his future in doubt because of it. You know, after the window, I guess you can talk about it if they haven't delivered for him. And we shall see because time is running out. One name that was linked today was Brian Brobby, I think it's pronounced, which just makes me think of Mr. Blobby for some reason. That's one for the UK viewers, probably of the older persuasion as well. Yeah, from what I understand, Spurs got no interest in doing that deal. It would have been a bit mad, really, because you look at his figures for the season, you look at someone like Troy Parrott, who's smashing it in the Eredivisie with RZ, 12 goals, 3 assists in 28 games for him. It would look incredibly stupid, really, to sign someone who's not doing as well in the Eredivisie and you've let one of your club-trained players head out the door who's doing better. And you could have brought them back for cheaper, really, because there's a sell-on clause with him as well. Yeah, it was one of those I kind of saw a link and I was like, it doesn't really make any sense. and then did some digging, and essentially doesn't seem like it's going to be anything that comes of anything. But there are going to be deals that come out of woodwork, not woodwork. Maybe just out of, I don't know, whether they get desperate towards the end and they look at some things that they wouldn't normally look at, like we said earlier with the Postecoglou answer there, of maybe just to bring in some squad depth, just to give something different, a little bit like a version of, I guess, Dan Juma with Conte, Conte was a bit like, I didn't even really need him. He doesn't fit any kind of role that I have in my team. But ultimately, it was another body and some fresh legs and a way to change things in games. And whether that just ends up being what they do, just like a short-term loan, or whether they try to get in someone that could be potentially a little bit bigger than that for the long term. There definitely seems to be an interest there in the young Southampton lad. His first name always goes out of my head. It's Tyler Dibbling. That's it. I was going to say Dibley. That's one for the Red Dwarf fans out there. Dwayne Dibley, Tyler Dibbling. Another, talented young player. You've seen the links out there with him already, but so it's not like breaking news or anything. But I would imagine if they're going to do a deal like that, it's probably going to be like a loan back or something. And again, he's injured right now, but also it's another 18-year-old. I don't know how that would go down, and I think it sounds like it'd be big money for him as well. He's a very good player, but again, it would. I'm not sure how well that would go down, and it's not someone that's helping them for now. That would need to be something for the future, you would think. But again, a lot of competition and a lot of interest in him anyway. But they just need to do something. They need to do something for the now. They need to get it done. What we got over a week or so, week and a bit to go. Things need to happen. Things need to happen. They need at least 2, I would say, coming in just to give him some bodies. And exactly like he said, it's all very well looking at the squad and going, oh, but that player will be back, that player will be back and all that. But they're not now. They're not now. And you've got these games coming up first that are really important. And they should have been brought in by now. They should have been brought in. It's one of those where I'm sure we'll get a transfer window wrap from probably Johan Langer afterwards, and it would be lovely for the kind of journalists to be able to quiz Johan Langer, Daniel Levy, anyone that's not Paul Postecoglou, 13 press conferences in 20 days, But we just don't get that. We don't. It's time for the club to step up for Postecoglou, and mainly the players, as he keeps saying. It's just an absurd situation. The players are behind him. There's no doubting the ridiculous situation he's working in right now. And as I said, it's so easy to keep forgetting these injuries. People, I know they're sick of that as an excuse, a reason, whatever. But it's there. You can see it. You can see how tired they are. I was talking to some of the Spurs fans. I had loads of great chats with Spurs fans. And some in the hotel I was in Heidelberg. Some just around the game, around the stations as we were going there and coming home. And we're all kind of just saying the same thing. It's, where are the signings? Johan Langer works in this far more secretive way than Fabio Paratici does. So there's far less leaks of what you get out there. You've probably heard me say this before, but, when I spoke to Bo Sanderson, the Djurgården director of football sporting director about Lucas Bergvall deal, and he just said how quiet Langer tried to keep that deal. And, at the end, it was only them and Barcelona kind of going for him. And I say only Barcelona, but that seems to be the way he works. That they're kind of almost like, if it's not a deal that they can kind of push through on the quiet, they maybe won't go near it because they're worried about competition. I don't know, but it's very different from the Paratici days when everyone in Italy seemed to know exactly who Spurs were going for. That's suddenly you get a Kinski style transfer out of the blue. There were a few of those, last year as well, but it needs to happen. They need to come out of the blue now. They need to get going. They need to get them in the door. I know they're not going to be able to. This is the thing, isn't it? Look, they're going to get to play the Leicester game, and then there's going to be the same squad. They're going to have to play the same squad against Elfsborg because they can't register anyone. But for the Brentford game, come on, get some players through that door. He was asked after the game. Postecoglou, how have you got through difficult situations in the past and come through the other side and got success? And he said, look, I've been doing this for a long time now. What's important is that you have a really strong belief in what you're doing and not get influenced by noise and not get influenced by what the current mood is in terms of people's assessment of where you're at. For me, that's always been the most important thing. I firmly believe in what we're doing. I firmly believe that we're on the right road. Whether others agree with that is irrelevant to me. It doesn't make any decision. It doesn't affect my decision making or my interaction with the people at the club, and particularly the players and staff. They're my focus. They're who I need to make sure that they have the belief. If they still have the belief, then I know we can achieve success. So it's not easy, to be fair, because there's a lot of noise. In the Premier League, there's the most noise, so you have to deal with that. But in the end, it's just noise. So he's probably talking about pundits, he's probably talking about media, he's probably talking about fans as well. There was a little bit about him kind of saying, you know, everyone needs to stick together right now and things like that today in the press conference as well. But yeah, there's always noise around Spurs. Spurs are probably one of the noisiest clubs going. There's always something going on, and in this week in particular coming ahead, that noise needs to be the footsteps of new signings walking through those doors at Hotspur Way, because just please help them. Please help those knackered Spurs players and Postecoglou, who they're all battling away with no reward right now other than the 3 points from last night. Not last night, sorry, Thursday night. I will get the hang of this. I'm not absolutely shattered, of course. But hey, it's a good shattered. It's a shattered with a victory, and I wasn't even able to play in it. I end up having to play in one of these games. I don't think I can be registered, and to be honest, I've got dodgy hamstring anyway. So I'm a member of the unavailables. Right, time to head off. Time to head off and recharge my batteries as well, as I'm sure you'll all do today as a Saturday off. And then we go again, 2 p.m. kickoff against Leicester. They've lost, is it 7 in a row? Spurs need to do this. They're going to need the crowd. They're going to need the crowd to really push them on as they start flagging in this game. Absolutely they are. And fingers crossed they get through this. They need to do that because, you know, if they could put together a little hat-trick of wins in these 3 games, just gives them something going on to the Brentford game, which is going to be an incredibly tough game away from home. Get some new faces in, get some players back, and then suddenly it'll feel like they're turning the corner. But we need to get there. So there you go. Right, time to head off. As always, stay healthy, stay safe, look after yourselves. I shall catch you later. Goodbye.